is when it comes to government or law enforcement. Reform is always great. Why not? We always have to work to be better. Self-reflect. In my own personal life, I'm an Orthodox Jew. Every evening before I go to sleep, I say something called Kriya Shema. I say a prayer, and I self-reflect. I go through my day, and I believe that when it comes to law enforcement, obviously we need they need to self-reflect, and we have to assess and see how can law enforcement be better, and how can we help them be better. But I am 100% opposed to this movement of defund the police. I think it's a reckless and dangerous movement. There was simply no time. It's impossible from the time the movement started to the actual defunding happened. The council passed a bill. It was impossible to properly assess where this money is going to come from and how it's going to affect the streets, how it's going to affect crime. And we're seeing here in the last something like 4 years, we see the streets are becoming very dangerous. And ever since the defund the police movement started, the streets became even more dangerous. And yesterday, somebody was shot in broad daylight in the middle of a park in Crown Heights. 2 weeks ago, there was a shooting in Brooklyn and Sterling. People aren't leaving their homes. And although some of the motives of the protesters may have good motives and altruistic motives, the rhetoric coming out of the elected officials and some of the rhetoric coming out of some of the other protesters and so-called community leaders is dangerous. And people are being murdered and shot in the streets of New York now as a result. There is no question in my mind that the movement to defund the police has cost lives of innocent New Yorkers. Innocent New Yorkers are dead now as a result of the movement and this rhetoric. Crown Heights, for example, is so lawless that people are taking reds. I see people taking reds, fireworks throughout the night. Basic laws are being broken, in addition to the violent crime of people being mowed down in the street, shot in broad daylight. There is absolutely no fear of consequence in this neighborhood anymore. And we're heading to very dangerous times. And we're at a point now where either we're going to reverse it, either we're going to send a message, laws are not meant to be broken. Yes, we believe that Black lives do matter, but it does not mean that New York should turn lawless. It does not mean that New York should turn into Gotham. And if we don't reverse it now, we're going to come to a point where we're not going to be able to reverse it. Real estate's going to go down. I have 5 friends that moved to Miami in the last 2 weeks because of what's going on. The streets are becoming incredibly dangerous, Vivian. I believe me, you together. I'm a Orthodox Jew. I'm obviously white. You're a Black American living in Crown Heights. I think together, we both, I consider us fair-minded people. I think together we could come together, advocate for reform, at the same time send a message that crimes cannot be broken. We stand with the police. Most of the police are good. Most of the police are not bad. They put their lives in the line every day to protect us, and we respect our men and women in blue, and we want them to enforce the law, and we will have their backs when they enforce the law. And my message to the officers of 71st is, we have your back. Go out there, enforce the law, stop the fireworks, arrest the criminals, go after whoever's committing these crimes or encouraging the crimes, and we have your back. We stand with you, and we support you, and we are totally with you, 71st Precinct and 77th Precinct, our 2 precincts.
Yes, about 2 weeks ago, we had a discussion, a few community members at the precinct, and we spoke about the fact that right now we have to find ways to work with each other. We need to have community policing. We need to, I'm so sick and tired of having these discussions all the time, and there's nothing being done about it. So we have a rising rate in crime as we speak right now. You just said that we had someone got shot down in Lincoln Terrace Park in broad daylight.
Park in broad daylight. Can you imagine?
So we have a lot of people right now protesting, screaming Black Lives Matters, walking, painting the street, Black Lives Matters. How do you think that is working with all the, the violence that's going on? Is it really working? The fact that we're screaming Black Lives Matters and we're still having this amount of crime, we're painting it all. We don't have any respect. We don't have any respect. It's very embarrassing to me as a Black woman to get up and hear about the crimes that's being committed against Blacks.
Vivian, the
Right.
movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, I think we have to differentiate them, first of all, from the organization. There is a movement, and a just movement, that they're advocating that all lives matter. Certainly Black lives matter. Black people deserve to feel safe. Black people deserve to be safe. But the rhetoric, and I want to say that's different from the organization Black Lives Matter, which some of the leadership of the organization is anti-Zionist, anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic. But I think locally, I'm not talking about local Black Lives Matter. I'm talking about the original organization. But I think we could all agree that the movement, we stand with the actual movement, that all people, all Americans deserve to feel safe and be safe, and Black people deserve to be safe and feel safe. But when you bring up community relations and community policing, the rhetoric coming out of the elected officials in New York and elsewhere have done more damage to community relations than the murder of George Floyd. The rhetoric against the police. We know, we both work with 71st, Vivian. We've seen how they come into the community, how they talk to the residents, how they de-escalate situations. We've seen it ourselves. Why is it when these officers can't walk down the street without being spit on today? Why is it? The elected have to stop with the rhetoric. The leaders have to stop with the rhetoric. Yes, we want reform, but you are doing more damage to community policing, to 40 years of community policing in Crown Heights, than the murder of George Floyd.
I think that it requires a very, very large discussion that goes beyond today. Yaakov Hai, it's really good to see you. Congratulations on being a great leader for the Public Safety Committee and for your stand up for the police, and your Vivia, thank you for the conversation, for having me on. In terms of the difference between reform and defund, we have to come to a conclusion whether we need the police department altogether. So what does the police department do? They keep street safety, they protect the people. We need them, right? Without them, who can do their job? Nobody. In terms of masses protesting George Floyd because of a few police officers who are not supported by anybody in the PD that I know of, masses and masses and masses of people that the elected officials are afraid of, that's insanity. I think we have to be clear in the priority of who the elected officials are going to protect, whether it's going to be their police department or is it going to be a whole bunch of anarchists. I think the rhetoric is very important. I think that the communication between the community and the police department is not only reliant on local community activists and those who support, the community on the local level, but it goes beyond it. And there have been a lot of shootings lately. According to citywide reporting, I think the murder rate went up 29% since last year.
I think 130.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm listening. Go ahead.
And that is a number that is measurable in terms of crime, because some crimes are underreported and some crimes are not as measurable, but that, I was told, is the barometer that could be measured by, is the murder rate. And it went up. It went up by a lot. So at the end of the day, a lot of Black lives died. Where are the protests? A lot of Black lives died. Where are the protests? A lot of police officers died. Where are the protests? So my question is to the Black Lives Matter movement, and to the elected officials and to the mayor, actually, is what exactly are you thinking of? What exactly do you stand for?
So we don't have the mayor right now, so we don't know what he's thinking. But really, defunding, taking away $1 billion, right, and redirecting it into programs, it can be good if we have community involvement. Okay, so the mayor is going to put a task force together, and with his team, and how do we know if the team that he's putting together have any interest in the community that they're supposed to put, help?
Listen, Vivian, the mayor has 1.5 years now to save his legacy. If he continues to behave the way he's behaving, he's going to be remembered as the worst mayor in the history of New York. There's a joke going around that he did David Dinkins a favor. David Dinkins said, "Thank you, Mayor de Blasio. I'm no longer the worst mayor." And I have respect for him. We're friends. We have a friendly relationship. I know him a long time. I've worked with his office closely on many situations, and I'm disappointed. And he has now 1.5 years. He could, he still has the ability to get behind a law enforcement. Yes, make reform, but don't allow New York to become lawless and ruined. And that's what's happening here. And Frank, I don't care what committees the mayor makes or doesn't make. What I care about is when I call 911, somebody should respond. When somebody's shooting fireworks from the window, from a window in Eastern Parkway into the street, and people are scared to walk Eastern Parkway. As a result, people are scared to leave their homes. People are scared to walk into parks because they're afraid they may be shot in broad daylight. I walk down Brooklyn and Sterling every day. I have a sister living around on that corner, a young sister, with a young niece. There was a shooting there in broad daylight. I reviewed the footage. It looked like it was a movie. 2 kids get out, holding guns, start shooting into the street. I believe a young black girl was killed. The streets are becoming increasingly dangerous. And Vivian, I feel that there's a lack. The majority is not speaking out. You were by the community board meeting. I tried to pass a motion that we should write the mayor a letter instructing the police to enforce the law to stop the dangerous fireworks. And 80% of the board voted it down. People are scared to go against the mob. And the fear-minded people of New York City, the majority of New York City has to come out and say, we will not allow New York to go lawless. We will not allow New York to be ruined. We want laws to be upheld. If you have an issue with fireworks, go change the law in Albany. They're about to create they want to pass the socialist law to cancel rent for a year. So if they could cancel rent for a year, let them cancel it's no longer illegal to light fireworks in the streets. But as long as it's illegal to light fireworks and it's dangerous, and I call 911 or 311, I expect a response. And the fact of the matter is there is no response. And the fact of the matter is people are breaking the law in this city and getting away with it.
911 was told to stand down.
No, please don't interrupt me. And there's no consequence for breaking the law. That's the facts. There are no consequences of breaking the law unless we do something. We have a very small window. Because once it turns, it turns. Unless we do something now, the city is going to be ruined. And we're going to lose a lot of friends. A lot of people are going to die. The streets are becoming dangerous, and they're becoming dangerous fast.
Yes. So we have Ree Kenzie with us right now. We are going to unmute your mic so you could say hi and chime in on the topic of what do you think about defunding the police versus police reform?
Hello, everyone. Let me just start by apologizing. I'm sorry for being a few minutes late. I did just chime in, and I was listening to Mr. Berman. And when he mentioned that there's a lot of illegality going on, the fireworks are illegal, and a lot of the activities that's taking place on the street is illegal. And the fact of the matter is we have to start questioning those in power. They're complicit with the illegal activities. So in a sense, to me, they're breaking the law as well.
How are they complicit?
To some degree, they're breaking the law. And we have to really start speaking up Like he said, we cannot be afraid of this mob mentality. We cannot be afraid of the mob. What's right is right and wrong is wrong. If we want to get this city back to some sort of normalcy, the people are going to have to step up and reclaim their streets, reclaim their communities, and reclaim their neighborhood, reclaim the city. Because obviously those that's in power, those representatives, have no intention on doing anything. It's going on for too long. I listened to fireworks for at least a good 6 weeks straight. Even up to last night, I heard fireworks. And that's just on top of everything else. Like he was saying, and I'm sure you guys were saying before I tuned in, the crime has skyrocketed, and it's been going up even prior to the calls to defund the police. And to answer your question about defunding the police, no, I'm not on board with that. No, I'm not on board with defunding the police.
So what do you think police reform would look like?
Well, that depends on who's doing the reform, because as far as I'm concerned, you have a lot of people calling to reform and to restructure and try to change the dynamic. But we got to look at who these people are. They have not taken one day of police training or tactical training, and most of them know absolutely nothing about law enforcement. This is not a simple 1, 2, 3. It takes time to implement changes, and you have to go to someone who absolutely knows about law enforcement, you know, someone who's trained in that, and that's their field, to work out how it could be restructured, what needs to be in structure, because it's more to a police force besides the beat cop or the patrolman. We have a larger dynamic, especially when you talk about NYPD, than just the cop you see on the street or going by in a cruiser. It's not a simple one.
I would like.
Go ahead, Anna.
I would like to address it a little bit. I'm a little bit. I have cops as friends. Love them very much. They're doing a great job. So we had and I'm close with some people on the PD. We had a conversation about reform and about the riots and all of that. They're very happy for all the overtime. And in addition, what they're not happy about is all the looting and all the burned cops and all the people who have to be arrested. What they're not happy about is the wrong rhetoric that is across the city. And in terms of the reform, I guess the reform could be to bring back the undercover cop unit. It was completely disbanded. What it did was it saved lives. There were the unit that was trained to do a specific job and to do it in the way that they were trained to do, which requires force sometimes. And they were after bad people. They were putting away bad people for doing bad things. Is that bad? No. Don't want to go, don't want your freedom arrested. Don't do something as bad as burn cop cars or drugs or abuse little children. You know what I'm saying? And the fireworks, they were told to stand down. They couldn't even in front of the protest by City Hall. The police were told to stand down. It goes up from the mayor to the lower level. And I mean, if you ask anybody at the community council precinct meetings, if you ask the people by the table or the people who are responsible for giving the information to the community, if you ask them who's telling the cops what to do, ask them. Go to the meetings and ask them. But I think it requires everybody's participation in this conversation, instead of just having one sidetracked mind and going with the latest hype of being the most popular because you fit into the largest crowd. That makes no sense.
So if we have 4 people here who are saying we feel that we need to work with the police, why can't we implement programs to bring in people with same interests of community involvement, community policing? And a lot of these parents that's in the home, that sometimes they know that their children have a weapon in the home, We have to get them involved because, as you know, if you have a child in your home and they have a gun, somebody is getting hurt. And somebody's going to get hurt. They don't have the gun for a toy or just to have. They have it there to use. So we have to now try to get the parents to police their home. That's a start. We could have the parents police their home, check on their children, make sure there's no illegal activities going on. We have to do something because we just cannot wait for the elected officials, because I think they don't know what to do.
Well, I think, Vivian, you're raising a very good point. Studies show when it comes to alcohol and drug abuse that when there's parent involvement, when parents send their children the message that it's not okay to use illegal drugs or alcohol, the statistics show that the kids are much less likely to use. Because younger kids and teenagers do care sometimes about what their parents say. And obviously we encourage all parents, and many parents do, to properly educate their kids, and especially during these hard times. Many of us don't have the tools with COVID and being home and but let's get the tools, let's work together, provide the tools to families to deal with the stress. And obviously if somebody in your family has a gun, you encourage your kid to turn it in, and if you think it may be used, you have to report it to law enforcement because it's a danger. That said, Vivian, prevention starts in elementary school or even before. If you want to work on prevention, you have to start at a very young age. And there are risk factors like poverty or other things that will show who's more at risk for crime or drugs. And there are great curriculums out there that are evidence-based that show that if the kids participate in these curriculums or these programs, they're less likely to be at risk. And you take a kid who's highly probable to join a gang or to commit a crime, and working with that kid and creating protective factors and teaching them prevention material and programming, you could prevent that kid from leading a life of crime. And that's important work, and that's the key to everything. Prevention is the most important thing. We could agree. The problem is now we're in a situation where there are a lot of people that are past that stage. They're involved in crime, and they're not listening anymore to their parents, and they're committing crimes. They've joined gangs, and they're committing crimes on the streets and in the neighborhood. And yes, prevention is the way to go long term, but to fix the problems today, prevention is not the solution. We're past prevention. I walked the streets. I spoke to some of the people that are lighting fireworks. I tried to reason with them nicely, and the response was terrible. Just the disrespect. 2:00 in the morning, lighting fireworks, just in the middle of the street. You approach them. I left because I feared it's going to turn violent. The conversation to go from talking to violence, I left. I didn't feel safe. And at this point in time, I think the streets, we need the police department to start enforcing the law. Yes, they should do it respectfully. Yes, they should try community engagement. Yes, they should not. They have to be good cops, be respectful. Obviously, like most cops are, we don't want them to be violent with people. We don't want them to use unnecessary force, obviously. But the bottom line is they have to enforce the law, because the only thing that works. The Old Testament says there has to be judges and police in every city if you want a civilized nation. And that's what we need. And New York now is becoming uncivilized. It's becoming lawless. It's turning dangerous. And primarily, the main reason for that is because the police department do not have the support of the elected, and they're scared to enforce the law. They know if they respond to a call of fireworks and there's a video of them arresting somebody, they could lose their badge, they could lose their pension. They're not responding. And we see an immediate reaction within a very short period of time. Shootings went up, violent crime went up, and it's going to continue to go up unless the streets become safe again and the police start enforcing the law again, and they have the support of the community and they have the support of the elected officials. Yes, we don't want police to be overly aggressive. Obviously, we don't want them to use force if they don't have to, but we do want them to enforce the law, and we want them to know that we have their backs if they do enforce the law. And that is the only solution now. Prevention is a conversation we have to have. parent involvement is a good conversation. Most of these kids that are shooting up people in parks, they're not going to listen to their parents. We're beyond that stage. We're past that point. And I think, Vivian, we have to get together as a community and send a message. We're disgusted by the murder of George Floyd. We're horrified by the murder of George Floyd. Black lives matter. Black people deserve to feel safe and be safe in America. But most cops are good cops. We stand behind the men and women in blue, and we support them, and we hope that they continue to enforce the law and to protect our streets. Because the danger is it's going to start now, by the way. Now we see shootings in Crown Heights and muggings. I remember 9/11. I remember how dangerous it was to go to synagogue. Just a year ago, after the shooting in Diego and elsewhere, people were scared to go to houses of worship because there was a danger that the synagogues are going to be shot up. And if we defund the police, like they're talking about defunding the police in New York, there are not going to be police to protect the houses of worship. The Labor Day parade's coming up. We need a serious amount of police on the street during Labor Day, right? It's an important parade to the community. You want to defund the police? Who's going to protect the streets during Labor Day? Who's going to make sure that Vivian could walk to the store on Labor Day? We need police. We need we need to educate the police. We need to work with the police and reform, but we do not want to defund the police. If anything, they need more funding because there are not enough cops in the streets. The country's becoming dangerous. Extremism is just on the rise, and we need a strong police force to protect our city. And by the way, Vivian, if they want to defund the police, let them get rid of the UN, because a lot of world leaders coming into New York because of the UN. And
yes.
NYPD, why waste money on protecting the president of Iraq or the king of Saudi Arabia? I'd rather they protect the streets of Crown Heights and protect our neighborhood.
Exactly. I think that's a very good point. To defund the UN. It makes no sense to me.
Fund it. I think we should turn it into a center for kids to have, recreation, alternative, sporting facilities. We'll make the armory. The armories are small. The UN has a serious amount of real estate in Manhattan. Get rid of the UN. We don't need the UN in New York. We should put their basketball courts, tennis courts, Olympic-sized swimming pools. Let our kids have some place to swim. Let our kids have we can have socially distancing swimming, even the UN is so big. We don't need the UN. It's costing New York City way too much money, and there's police resources are being wasted in the UN. Get rid of the UN and build
they're diplomats. That's what they say. We're diplomats. So yeah, we must figure out ways to help to alleviate crime. I know that's not gonna happen, but to actually bring it down. What we can do is to think about the fact that we do have a lot of police in the department that's racist, and how do we identify the good police from the bad police, and how do we reform it in a way? I think, listen, this is not going to happen overnight. I don't even know if this is going to happen in my lifetime. That this is how bad I look at it. Like, I don't see how this is going to change, because our education system is bad. We're not teaching the children any civic courses, nothing. So how are we going to engage our children if we're not giving them the education, equal education? We have some people who's getting $1 billion for their district education, and then we have some that's only getting 100,000. Like, how? That's not equal. So how?
Maybe it's a separate conversation.
It's a separate conversation.
I think so. We're talking about funding public schools. We're talking about funding the police.
Yeah, listen,
I don't think it's our
job.
It
all ties into the same thing, because if we had better education for our children, and we will be able to alleviate a lot of the problem that's going on. Well, our children have no respect for the system. put it like that. They have no respect for the system because the system has failed them in such a way that they have no resource, nowhere to go. There's no after school program. There's nothing. What are they supposed to do when you have a group of guys that's doing illegal activities, that's showing them love, that's giving them certain things that they need, and the system's not going to do it? So this is it is a part of the policing. It is a part the education system. It all ties into one.
Well, Vivian, the police have to do a better job at background checks today with social media. It's very easy to look somebody up, and the police could definitely do a better job at background checks. They could also work with organizations, to train the police better. There's no question. But that's a conversation the police have to have really internally. We can bring ideas to them and suggest that they do that. They have to do that because they're the only ones really that can make sure that they don't take in bad cops. We have very little. We'll have very little. We could do. We have very little enforcement mechanism to deal with that. But with regards to kids that the system has failed them, I agree it's a big problem. But I also think it's important that we send a message to our kids that if you want to succeed, you could succeed. And there are people that grew up in total poverty in Crown Heights and, are making good money and contributing to society, or not making money or contributing to society. So yes, it's harder for some and easier for others, but we should send a message that if anybody can make it, and we're here to help you make it. And if you want to go to college, if you had you don't have a high school diploma or whatever, there are resources out there. There are classes you could take and there are organizations that are going to help you. And regardless, that said, doesn't excuse violence, doesn't excuse crime. The fact the system failed you doesn't give you the right to shoot somebody up in a park. Yes,
Right.
You're wronged by the system, but still, that should not translate into an excuse for violence or to justifying violence and crime. I think it's a very sensitive conversation to have and a sensitive topic because, when we talk about people being mistreated by the system and not getting the education they deserve, or not, whatever their struggles were, we have to be very careful that we don't use it as an excuse to commit crime or to excuse violence. Because yes, those kids are having a hard time, and we have to be there to support them. We have to give them the resources, but there's never an excuse for violence. There's never an excuse for crime. And just because you were mistreated by the system does not mean you could shoot somebody up in a park, or you could mug or kill or do anything else. And you're not going to be excused for it. We feel bad for you. We're here to help you. We're here to give you the resources you need. But don't you dare shoot up somebody in a park or commit a crime. If you do commit a crime, you deserve to go to jail. If the crime is serious enough for jail, if it's something where they go to rehab or reform, I'm for that. But if it's going to be a violent crime, you're going to go to jail. And I don't care about your childhood. I don't care. I care enough to help you. But if you were going to kill somebody, don't tell me you were mistreated by the system. That's not an excuse. Your life is not more important than anybody else's.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yes.
I want to give a shout out to all the elected officials who are actually very vocal on the issue of supporting safety on the streets, lowering crime, and supporting the preventive measures for the children. They're often not heard because they're Republican, but I want to give a shout out to Assemblywoman Nicole Malliotakis, Councilman Joe Borelli, Councilman Holden from Queens, he's not Republican, Councilman Chaim Deitch, who just ran for Congress, former State Senator Marty Golden, and a whole bunch of other officials who are very vocal on this issue, and they're not as heard as they should be. So just wanted to say that. We've been discussing elected officials for a while. The mayor is a disaster, I'm sorry.
Okay, so Ree, do you have anything that you want to say?
Well, I'm not giving anybody a pass. I did hear you say that the elected officials don't know what to do. Then why are they elected? Why are they in a leadership position? They need to figure out what to do, because even prior to Black Lives Matters and all the protests, our communities have been out of control, but even more so now, obviously, for obvious reasons. And we have a mayor who came into office, who's been criminal friendly from day one. And he still managed to get a second term. I think it's just time for accountability. We all play a part in our communities on the condition of it, and especially when you're an elected official. So it's like he's crime friendly, and you have a lot of others on the council and even on the state level with the bail reform. They're just criminal friendly. So we talking about defund the police, and you got people talking about ban the police. But what we need is an entire new administration, and to bring some kind of common sense back into legislating and back into these offices. Because obviously, it's like these people have lost their minds, as far as I'm concerned, and they're not getting a pass from me. They're not going to get a pass from me. They should be ashamed of themselves the way that some of these districts, districts are. They're out of control. Last week we had 5 children murdered, and maybe at least 10 women shot. So it's not even young men anymore. We have girls, women, children, everybody falling out, everybody gunshot victims. That's unheard of. It's something wrong with that. And for them to sit there silent, she mentioned the ones who's been speaking out, Anna, but you have a lot of them who represent our districts who look like us. But I can't say Eric Adams do speak out. He do, I give him credit. But the rest of them, I'm still waiting. I'm not holding my breath, but I'm waiting. Nothing, absolutely nothing.
But yes, like you said, Eric Adams has been very vocal.
Yeah. And that could be because he is a former police officer.
Eric is a dear friend.
Always spoken out, even when he was a police officer.
Eric is a dear friend, but he's not been where he should be on the fireworks, on the crime. He said call 311. He said don't call. I think he said speak to your neighbors. I think Eric now, Eric, I know him also 10 years. He's been a friend for 10 years. I don't think he's spoken out enough either. I don't think he's speaking out like he should. I think Eric has to send a message that no, he shouldn't be saying talk to your neighbor. He should be saying that if somebody's lighting a fireworks and you're endangered, the police should be making arrests. And I stand with the police, and he hasn't said that. So yes, Eric's a good man, but I really think he could be doing more to support law enforcement during these times.
Okay, so where are the fireworks coming from? We know that the fireworks are not being bought in Brooklyn. And we know a lot of these young people don't have access.
We want to say something, I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
The fireworks is the least of our problems. We have people, every day there's murders in our community. So the fireworks, to me, it's a problem. It's an issue. But that is the least of our concern.
I think they're all interconnected. I think once there's a message out there that laws aren't being enforced, once there aren't consequences for minor laws, there's a law. There was a party that was started with fireworks and everybody ended up being stabbed. So yes, the fireworks pale in comparisons to the shootings and the crimes and the murders, but they're all interconnected because if laws aren't being enforced, the streets become lawless. It starts off with the minor laws, and it goes further. So they're all interconnected, in my opinion. And I think that to be a leader means you say things sometimes that are against what the people want to hear. You lead. You risk your career. You lead. And what we need now, leaders. We need people to get up and say. I called up one of the elected officials recently about something going on in the neighborhood. And this elected official told me, he said, I'm scared to talk. They'll destroy me. They'll destroy my career. And I said, you're a leader. Be a leader. Speak out. It's not about your career. It's about saving this community from destruction and ruin. And like I said, the window is, we have a short amount of time to save this neighborhood. And this is not an issue which is only of importance to one community. I think the Jewish community, the Black community, or even let's call them the young professionals that have gentrified Crown Heights. I think it's important to everybody living here today. And we have to stand together and send out a message that we want police reform in the sense we want good cops on the streets. We want bad cops. I think it's a very, very, a small minority. We want bad cops to be, there should be consequences. They should be thrown off the force. But the vast majority of cops are good. And we support them. We want them to enforce the law. We want them to enforce the law, all laws. We don't want the local beat cops what law should be enforced and what law shouldn't be enforced. Laws are not meant to be broken. You have an issue with a law, go to Albany and change it. But as long as the laws are in place, we expect the police department and our elected officials to stand behind the police department. They should be enforcing these laws. Otherwise, the trend is going to continue and the city is going to be totally ruined.
So now that we've identified all these problems, what are some of the solutions? How can we help to change the narrative that we are facing right now?
Holding forums like these, Vivian,
Excuse
having
me?
conversations, sending a message to the police and to the elected officials that we want laws to be kept, we want laws to be enforced, having these meetings with the community. Those are all helping, talking to your neighbors about it. Petitions to support law enforcement. These are all going to help. All these things help.
I think when Rudy Giuliani was a mayor, he wasn't asking the community whether he should clean up Times Square or whether he should enforce the broken window theory, right? When he saw a problem, he fixed it. So the way that it was done is that he was a leader and he had the guts to be a leader. I think we need more leaders with those same guts to take a stand and enforce the law instead of being afraid that they're going to lose their job.
A little more sane, hopefully. Vivian, I gotta go. Rhea,
Okay.
Thank you all. It was an honor to join you. I hope we have more conversations like these. And like I said, this is not an issue that's of importance to one community over the other. It's important to all communities. We have to stand together and united against crime, in support of good reform, but most importantly, in support of the men and women in blue, the good men and women in blue that are enforcing the law. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate your point of view. And the next meeting we're going to have is about action, solution. What can we do as community members to help our community that we live in to be more safe? Because of course we know that the electeds are not speaking out. They're scared.
Do you really want someone representing you who's scared?
Bye.
Bye.
Do you really want someone representing you who's a bully or who's afraid? I'm not understanding where these representatives are coming from, that they're in fear, they can't speak up because their career is going to be ruined by their colleagues. Are these people we really want representing us? People who's using these kind of bullying tactics? Come on. It's just not making sense to me. If we have to call them out, we have to call them out. This is no way to legislate. This is no way to run a city. It's no way to run a district. This type of behavior has to go. There's no way that we could be sustainable under that kind of leadership. Bully tactics, or either a leader who's in fear that he can't say nothing because his colleagues are going to be afraid or they're going to blackball him. The hell with them. You're not doing your job. You're not doing your job, period. We have to get out and police ourselves? And then we got this criminal-friendly mayor. And this is where it starts from the top down. He's telling the officers in the NYPD to stand down. Like in other cities, the mayors are doing the same thing, along with some elected officials. Now, why are you allowing people to break the law? We should be asking themselves that question. Why are you allowing people to break the law? Why are you allowing your constituents and the residents to live in fear or risk being shot or beat up? Firecrackers, all types of things coming through people's windows, homes burning down. Why are they allowing that?
Well,
idea.
that's the question.
No idea. They need to be elected. And what I noticed in terms of the elections is that there is a voter base. And the voter base is differentiates between mindsets. So there is a mindset on the left, there is a mindset on the right, and there's a mindset in the middle. So the mindset on the middle is usually swingers, right? So the mindset is so whoever approaches you first and you like better. So the mindset on the right is very pro law enforcement. The mindset on the left is not so much, is more for change and progress, but they don't exactly know what that means. And they don't have they're afraid of proactive, forceful action, so to speak. Not only that, basically, I don't get that mindset, but it is, and they get elected because the people who believe in that vote for that. That's what, and the way that they have to win is the rhetoric that pushes the other side of that aside and calls law enforcement fear mongering when we raise the issues. So I think that, so on one side yells, the other side is fear mongering. They're evil. They want everybody deported. They want everybody in prison. On the other side, they're saying this whole city is going haywire. Law enforcement, we're not saying everybody should be in jail. We're not saying everybody should be deported. We're not saying any of that. We're saying let's sit down and let the cops do what they were supposed to do. They have CCRB, they have IAB, they have the commissions, and they have the local chaplains community. They have the system set up to root out corruption, to root out racist, for training. The cops need the funding for training. Agreed?
Well, they're cutting the 2021 recruitment for police officers because of the defunding the police. They're redirecting the fund to different programs. So, but at the same token, they're redirecting the funds, but we're having a spike in crime because the mayor is telling the police officers are not making the decisions of
No.
not going out there to stop the illegal fireworks.
No.
Those decisions are coming from higher, they're taking orders from mayor and coming down the elected line. So what are they supposed to do when I'm calling them and telling them that I don't call them about the fireworks because, to tell you the truth, I'm not calling them about the fireworks because not right now it's so much tension with the police and the community. I'm not calling the police right now because I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to be a part of escalating problems. So I don't call the police for anything right now. They're not going to come. We're not going to come. So what I'm saying is, as community members, we have to start speaking to our neighbors. We have to start, sometimes you walk down the street and you see this person every single day. And I don't understand why we can't just say hello to each other and try to build community relations. That's what's lacking. As long as we cannot speak to our neighbors, we have problems because these are the people that's right next door to you, and you need to know them. And you need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to organize groups to go out and patrol the neighborhoods. I mean, as the director of the non-for-profit Friends of Wingate Park, we organize groups to go out. We clean up the streets. Right now and Anna, you're always there helping me, and I do thank you so much. I want to also thank Dennis Levy. I mean, I don't give him enough credit, and he's a senior citizen. And every time I call him and ask him to do something, he's taking the train just to come to help me clean up the community. So I do appreciate him. I'm getting a lot of the young people that's committing crimes that have to do community service, helping to clean up the streets. And sometimes when I call and I say, listen, I'm doing a park cleanup, they say, how many kids do you want, Vivian? And I say, God darn it, it's so sad. It is so sad. These young kids, 15 to 20, they already have a track record. And sometimes they didn't do the crime. So we can't really say, yes, a lot of these kids are doing these illegal activities, because the police sometimes, although I'm a part and I support the police officers, we have bad police officers as well as good.
Most of them are good.
I come from a civil servant family, and I come from a family with law enforcement. I honestly believe that there are more good than bad. Obviously, we need to weed out the bad. It does need to be some kind of system in place to weed it out. So I think with the repeal of 50A, and I'm thinking they need to probably add in the psychological training, maybe yearly instead of prior to being hiring. That probably needs to be yearly. But I'm also thinking as well with these elected officials, they should also have psychological testing and evaluations yearly.
Wait, excuse me. The
Yeah.
elected officials need,
Yeah,
they're a little crazy too, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just not a breakdown in the police force with racism and unethical behavior. It could go across the board. I mean, you have Alessandria Biaggi or whatever her name is. I can't recall her district. I think she's an assemblywoman. That's calling. I think she might have put together some legislation where a policeman can lose their pension for misconduct. So now my answer to that is, who's going to be the judge and jury, and what level of conduct are you talking about when you talk about someone losing their pension? You see what I'm saying? So you have a lot of elected officials that, to me, are not seeing both sides of the coin, and not really thinking logically. And when you talk in terms of defunding the police, you and I both know, Vivia, when there's any defunding with anything, our communities are the first to feel the brunt. So you're saying you're not calling the police because they're not going to come. You could go into another neighborhood, maybe Howard Beach. They're going to come when you call them.
Yes.
But you have more of us screaming, rah, rah, yeah, defund the police. And we're not even looking at the future. You understand? We're not looking at what's going to take place with us trying to get rid of the police, when we know that we already lack in certain services in our communities anyway. And we have these people that's representing us, that's on board, when they know that they haven't fully been doing what they could do. They're on board with this when they know the conditions in our community as well. It's not making sense. This is not what we need. And it is time for change. And it's time for some people, thank God for term limits, but it's time for some of those that may not be reaching a clock of term limits. We just need to really get rid of some of these people. And I just have to say it. And I'm not afraid. I have to say it.
Vote November 2020.
Yes, vote November 2020. That's right.
I think the communication between community, I think it's very important to November 2020. I'm hearing it as a.
Vote November 2020. That's right.
I think the communication between community, I think it's very important to November 2020. I'm hearing it as a.
Vote November 2020. That's right.
I think the communication between community, I think it's very important to November 2020. Review?
Hi. I'm sorry. So we're having a little technical difficulty. I don't know.
We are?
Yeah, the mic. So Patrick, did you want to say something? You came in late. Patrick from Street Hype Newspaper is joining us. I don't, I'm trying to unmute his mic. It's not unmute. It's not. Patrick, can you unmute your mic? Patrick? Okay, so Patrick is a little bit late, and I don't know why his mic is not going on mute. So, yeah, so unfortunately, I don't know what's going on with Patrick. We can't unmute his mic. But hopefully he could hear us. And Patrick, if you can unmute your mic, you could go ahead, because I can't.
Sorry about that. You hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, what was the question?
The question is about police defunding the police versus reform, police reform.
Well, I don't know. This comment about defund the police, what are they trying to say? We don't need a police force? That makes no sense at all. We just need to reform the police. We just need to have a mayor who would appoint a police commissioner that respect the Black community especially. Just simple that. Because if the police, you see, police work on instructions and order. So if you give the police some order to say, listen, don't mess with these people unnecessarily, they won't do it. And if you look, police don't mess with people who have money, rich people, they don't mess with them.
Right.
Police don't mess with members of the gay society because they know if they mess with them, it's gonna be a lot of trouble. All right? It's a reality. They don't mess with them. Because like years ago in the 70s and 80s, police used to harass a lot of gay bars, a lot of gay people, harass them badly. And what happened? They have reformed and, police come to realize that they can't mess with them because if you mess with them, you're gonna be losing your job. And it's gonna be very tough on you. And so it's like the Black African-American community, they can do them anything at all and nothing happen. So that's where I think we are. We just need to make police understand that every group of people are important. The rich people, the Black people, the lesbian, the gays, everybody is important. And just treat people with some level of fairness and life will be good for everybody.
That's true. So, with that being said, how do you think we could actually, as a community and community members that wants to see change, wants to stop the violence, want to work with the police officers, what actions can we take towards that? Because right now, the police are not really able to do their jobs because they're getting instruction to stand back, to stand down. So how could we try to work with the community, organize the community? Because, as community members, we're going to have to start learning how to police our own selves.
Well, to me, as I say again, the police just have to be respectful of everybody and treat people with respect. Ensure the people don't break the law. Treat people with respect. That's it. I don't think it takes any special rocket scientist to work out something. You just treat people with respect. So you just as you would stop anybody, you stop a Black man or an African American guy, you just treat him with the same level of respect.
But sometimes you sit down, like I look at the news and I wonder who's giving these people instruction the way they handle African American. I mean, it's lawless. Sometimes the action is lawless of the police officers as well, not just the criminals, but there is a difference the way Black folks are being treated. A big difference. But the problem is, I think, is like you said, Patrick, the gay community, they're well organized. You know what I mean? They're well organized. These groups come in numbers. When you organize a community event, as my community board, I'm on the community board, we have meetings every single month. Sometimes I could count on my fingers how many people are there. Well, maybe not my finger, but maybe 20 to 30 people at each meeting, if that much. And I'm saying, with a community with over so many people, why aren't they coming out to find out what's going on? Why aren't they coming out to see what's going on in their community?
Renee, want to make a point now? Ren?
Are you what are you saying, Vivian? Were you asking someone that question?
Excuse me?
Were you asking Patrick or someone?
No,
Vivian, we're
I'm
not,
just saying, we
one
just
minute,
having a
1 minute.
conversation.
Vivian, we're
If you
not
want to
seeing
say-
you, Vivian. We're not seeing you.
You're not seeing me?
No,
Okay.
you may need to do something with your virtual background.
Okay, that's fine.
It's not fine, we're not seeing you.
Okay. All right. Ree, you want to take that question? Ree, can you hear me?
Ree, I think she's frozen. Vivian, what exactly is your question? What action should be taken?
Yeah. What action can we take? Because all the other communities are organized, right? All other communities are organized. Why the Black community have so many problems with police officers at all times? We have, like Patrick said, we have the gay community. We have the rich community. No one else is being treated the way we are being treated. What is the difference? What's the problem?
So I think that there are issues, obvious issues, and sometimes it seems that the number of arrests and a number of issues are extremely overblown in the Black community as not as much in the rich community or whatever. However, each community has different types of issues. The rich community will have white collar financial fraud, for example, electronic fraud, drugs, different types of issues. The Black community has a lot of risk because there's more one-on-one violence. There is more issues which are more visible and and right in your face. And the reason is there could be a number of issues. There's not enough supportive services inside the under the poor communities. I think that the when you take away the tools from law enforcement to keep people safe, the bad actors are going to come out and run the streets, and the police are not going to be able to keep the people safe because they're told to stand down. So but how did we come to this situation where it was already this stigmatized view that this specific community, you're back?
Yeah.
That this specific community is over marginalized in statistical reportings, right? Well, maybe it just happens to be that the types of crimes committed in that particular community are the ones that will show up on statistical reporting, number one. Maybe there is a lot more incidents in that particular community of those types of crimes. And maybe there is not enough desire by the community is not cohesive enough, is not supportive enough, is not loving enough to each other, and is not participatory enough to want to eliminate or even stand against those issues, because on one hand they're afraid of their neighbors, on the other hand they're just not interested, and the third hand they don't feel protected. So even if it's not only elected officials who are afraid of losing their job, it's people on the street who are afraid of each other.
But
Yeah.
you answered that question, Vivia. You said that every other community is organized and we are not organized. You answered the question. We need to be better organized. Of course, it's a disengagement and a big civic engagement. People are not engaged enough, but we're absolutely not organized.
We
So
need to,
we
as a
need to organize.
community, we're gonna have to
Has to be a very tight.
learn how to communicate with each other. That's basically it, because we can't wait for the police department to do everything. We as a community, we have to learn how to work with each other. We have to start having respect for each other, stop killing each other. I mean, like Yorkov just said, 11 a.m. they're shooting in the park. A park is supposed to be a safe haven where you go and, you know, just to get out the house, play with your kids. There's so many kids in the park. What's the mentality to go into the park to shoot? You know? So this is where we are.
Depravity, or maybe depravity.
The what?
Not enough support from the normal, I mean, every person who is at risk needs another stable person who would stand there for them and tell them that, you know, to keep away from idiots or idiotic things, in those words. Everybody needs support and affection, and maybe just certain communities don't have enough of that, but at the same time, I think that it takes each individual at a time to say, hey, I'm going to trust this. Let me try to trust somebody, and let me come to one of those events or to two of those events. Let me see the cops as good people, even if some are bad people, just like every human group and race. And there are good people and there are bad people. What are you going to do? You arrest bad people and that's it. So you arrest the bad cops and they go away. Just like the people, they're people, right? They have their own thing for the police department, just like we have our own thing for us. I mean, right? It's it's investigated. So there's nothing special that needs to be done in terms of that except training. And so training is necessary when there is an issue. It requires training, and every leader knows that. So if there is an issue, people need to be coached, or moved out if they're not coachable. So when you coach people, it takes training, academy, whatever, classes, training, field stuff, and it requires money. So the whole thing to defund the police is to defund training. Am I correct?
Well, that's what they're planning to do for the upcoming cycle. They won't have. Now we have Nardia. I don't know, her mic is muted. If she want to say something, she could unmute herself. Or I guess she just wants to.
Vivi, I have to go.
Okay, so I'm gonna on that note, our next, you know, we it is past 8 o'clock. It's 8:20. I want to thank you guys for coming on this chat. We're going to have another conversation on police engagement. I mean, community engagement, because right now I'm seeing we have a lot of problems, and I don't hear anyone speaking about solutions, and or what type of actions need to be taken to address this situation. I mean, so we could sit here and talk about the problems all year. If the elected officials don't come up with ways to help the community, we're going to be doomed, because it's like, oh, we have over 150 killings just recently.
There's too many illegal handguns on the street, and they were in a position for gun control or to do something about. We can't go out and stop the illegal handguns from coming into the street, from coming into communities. We have too many illegal handguns on the street. That's the bottom line.
Who's bringing in these guns? Who's bringing in the guns?
And yeah, I think it's time to
fireworks.
None of them are legal. It's illegal. So the National Gun Registry and all the registries are not going to help to keep illegal guns off the street. I hope people realize that.
No, they don't have to. Of course they're not. But in this state, they can have control over the illegal handguns. You know, each state do different things. Some states are open carry. Some states it's illegal. You know, to have
it's illegal here in New York.
Exactly, and there's too many illegal handguns on the street.
So the guns are illegal and the fireworks are illegal. Where are they coming from? Because they're here.
Right.
So that's another conversation. And with that being said, we're going to leave tonight with the point of coming up with solutions, because obviously I'm just sick of having these conversations about what's going on. When is
I
it?
gave you a solution. I gave a solution. It's time to clean house. It's time to clean house. I gave you a solution.
Okay, thank you.
You know, and
Thank you. All right, Patrick.
When Renee, is it Renee?
Ree.
When you said to clean house, what do you mean? We seem to be freezing.
Ree.
Yeah,
Free.
yeah, she's
Ree.
freezing up.
What
real
basically,
leadership.
We need you, Ree.
she said new leadership.
In
It's
terms of
time
who? The mayor or the police commissioner?
Absolutely from the top.
We
Okay.
can't hear you, Ree.
Ree's freezing.
Unmute your mic, Ree. Unmute your mic.
She's not hearing. You unmute her.
Absolutely, absolutely from the top down.
Mhm.
From the top down. It's time.
So
It's
the
time.
police commissioner,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
she wanna get rid
Me,
of
I
the
will-
the police union,
The police commissioner is following, you know, what the mayor is saying, but it's
Right.
just time from the top down. It's time for new leadership. Our communities have been spiraling out of control for the last 7.5 years. All right. It's just getting worse.
So we have two politicians in this room, you know. We have Vivian and you too, right? You're politician too, right? So
Yes.
mayor, we're looking at a mayor next year. Vivian
Well,
and
Eric Adams is running for mayor. We're not running for mayor.
oh,
Eric Adams is
what are you running for, Ree?
Council, city council,
Wow, what division?
35th.
That's in Brooklyn.
Yes.
We need some people in the Bronx.
Heights.
We need some people in the Bronx.
well, she's not in the Bronx. She can't run in the Bronx. That's not her district.
She can move over. She
It-
can.
I
Have the time. You have to be at a league as a
Where you running, Anna?
I am running to hopefully be as good of a person as I could be.
Yeah, but I mean politically, what division? What?
I'm a political activist at this point. I'm really not running for anything right now.
Oh,
I'm running to be as good of a person as I could
Nice.
be and to contribute as much as I could in a way that makes sense.
okay. Nadia, where are you running?
Nordia, her mic is, I'm trying to unmute it. I don't know why.
Nadia? I wonder where she's running.
I don't think she's
Oh,
running.
I'm trying to unmute. I'm running in Jamaica.
Oh, hi Nordia. What are you running for?
He's just kidding. I was invited to the meeting, so I'm actually in Jamaica. I'm not politically affiliated. However, I can relate to the crime issue because of what happens in my own country.
What's happening in your country right now?
Well, other than the pandemic, we have a crime issue as well.
And how are they addressing the issue there?
I think our government is trying different strategies, such as special what do you call it again, Mr. Maitland? SOE. What's the acronym
Yes.
again?
I don't remember. Special Task Force.
Right,
Zone of
right,
Special Operation.
right. Special
Zone of
operation.
Special Operation.
Right, in different areas in the country where they have increased the presence
Of the police and
the
soldiers.
police and the army to try and quell the different issues there. If it is working, maybe the percentage probably is not the response is not what we would have want, because persons are still dying and being killed right under the nose of the police officers. But I think our crime issue is politically related. It goes to the presence of poverty and a lot of issues, socio-economic issues that still have not been dealt with. You know, it is deeper than just getting more police on board. There are a lot of factors that have to be addressed to get to the meat of this, to the bottom of it.
Nadia, you think the Jamaica crime issue is related to maybe crime issue in New York, since we have a large percentage of Jamaican here?
A lot of our culture in Jamaica is heavily influenced by the US. Even some of how we fight crime, how we do crime, unfortunately. And in the past, I think last week, there was a clampdown on, well, not last week, some time ago, in the gun, there was a heavy gun fine, which was coming from the US. So there's a lot of things between Jamaica and US going on.
Oh, okay.
Is it in Florida where there's no gun law? Is it Florida?
No, they have gun laws in Florida.
But whichever state it is, that you don't have to have a license to go and purchase a gun or to have a gun or whatever you can. A lot of persons capitalize on that and ship it to Jamaica.
But how, even if they're shipping it, it has to be somebody that's at the wharf collecting it.
Which is why our corruption level is so high too.
Exactly, and that's what the same thing is happening here. It's not just them saying defunding the police to redirect funding in
right.
You have to weed out the corruption within that area.
Exactly. So these are the little issues that while we try to reform communities, we have to get rid of the corruption, the little foxes that are spoiling the vine that we're not addressing. Because these things can't pass borders without a proper link.
Yes, somebody have to be there, and it's not just the people that work on the wharf. It has to be somebody in power.
Yes, man. Yes, some level of authority. That is not a simple one.
It's not simple. And this is the same thing. We have illegal fireworks that's in our boroughs, all boroughs. And I'm saying, these young people that's bursting off these firecrackers and these guns, they don't have the money to bring it in the community. So who is actually bringing it? You have to have somebody in power.
Right.
Somebody in power. That's why I'm saying this is deep. This rabbit hole is deeper than we can even imagine.
And more than likely they're being compensated monetarily. So it's not just the guns, it's not just the drugs. There is an exchange, like a barter. So I give you this, you give me this. You give me more money, I get more power and more control. It's a cycle.
But I don't think New York here, we are facing it like that. I don't think it's necessarily in that same order, Miss Tim.
It seems like the same order to me. It seems
you
like
have to tell me. I'm here.
It seems like the same order to me. So something, like I said, we as community members, we have to learn how to connect with our neighbors, because that's where it starts. Because we can't depend on the police. Yes, I support the police, but I'm not gonna depend on the police because I don't know every police officer. The few that I do know, I know that they're in the right place, but there's a lot of them that they're being bought and paid for. You know what I mean? And sometimes the money that they're getting, greed is a terrible thing.
Yes.
And it all boils down to greed. And as community members, we're gonna have to find solutions and we're gonna have to speak up. We can't be afraid of the consequences, because guess what? If you don't speak up, we might be the next one. We can't.
My question to you though, as I guess there are politically affiliated persons here who will be running for different offices and so on. How do you intend to? Because for those persons who are not educated, education is a means to divert people from certain types of criminal activities, right?
Right.
However, what policies, what strategies are you going to put in place with some of these communities that you have to deal with? Because if you're not providing a way out, just telling them that you're going to be there for them is not going to be sufficient.
We have to implement programs. We need after school. First of all, we need better housing, and we need to be able to have we need better housing, and we need lower rents. People cannot afford to pay their rent, hence they have to do 2 and 3 jobs. If I'm a parent and I'm working, I have to get up in the morning to go to work at 6 o'clock, to work from 7 to 3, then I have to go to another part-time job just to be able to pay my rent. I don't have time to spend with my child. I don't know what my child is doing. So we have to create programs to help the home help with housing costs. You know what I mean? We need programs implemented to be able to lower rent, give people access to better homes, better jobs, so they could take care of their family. And it all boils down to a lack of family engagement, people not having time to spend with their children, so their children end up hanging out with the wrong crowd because those people are there for them. Of course they're going to be there for them.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, so we could sit and we could talk about the ills of our societies, what can be done, but until the people that is in power start doing it, and they know what needs to be done, I don't know why they're not doing it. You know, it's not that hard. It's not that hard. You know that there's programs that's needed in certain areas to detract people from illegal activities, and you're not implementing those programs. And the people that have the authority to implement those programs are not doing it. Now they're actually cutting funds to the hospital. We're in a pandemic and they're cutting funding for the hospitals. Not only the police officers. So when the people shoot up each other, where they gonna go?
They might have sources from other funding. They might have other funding sources, like the federal government or whatever, to make up for the city's budget. Have to look into that.
I don't see it.
Question again, for the projects that you intend to take on as a part of your strategy, do you intend to look at probably resources external to the US for help in the strategies that you want to employ, in terms of funding or sponsorship?
Well, right now, we're speaking about funding, they're cutting all the fundings to programs that's here in the States. So for me to tell you that we could actually help outside, right now, we have to deal with our home right now. You know what I mean?
No, man, I'm asking for you who will soon embark on your political journeys. Some of the stuff that you have to do, you might not necessarily get the help from within the US. For example, the housing and all of that. I'm asking if you will be seeking help from, I don't know, outside of the US to help you get done what you need to get done in your communities.
Yeah, I think she would expect you guys in Jamaica to help us. I think that's what Nadia is saying. She's asking if you're gonna need money to help with the campaign and with things like that.
Or sponsorship.
Or sponsorship. She's looking at that.
Of course, we always need help. We always need sponsorship. And we welcome anyone who would be able to assist us, That's the reason why we have these discussions. We have these discussions so we could get people engaged. We could build coalitions to be able to help each other. We know we need hospitals. We know we need better housing. How could we work together as a community and go, sometimes I tell people, let's go in front of City Hall. I mean, they're doing it now. I've been saying this for many, many moons. We need to protest, but when you organize it, the same people that's complaining, they're not
Not coming.
participating.
And by the way, Nadia is an international banker. And so perhaps, she's very humble. Perhaps she's looking at that perspective too. This is how she can help you to raise capital.
Well, definitely, Nadia, we could have an off the ear conversation, but right now, we need to actually come up with plans. We can't just come off of the top of our heads and say we're going to do certain things. We have to sit down, we have to plan things out and come up and implement those plans.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of these things I believe will take leveraging because you won't be able to do it by yourself. And sometimes, even in Jamaica, if we sit and wait for government to effect the changes we want to see, then it may never happen.
That's right. That's right. So we're gonna say good night on this note. We've been on this topic for a very long time and we want to revisit it. But what I'm saying right now, what I would really like for us to do after this meeting is to really come up with solutions. I am so sick of tired talking about the problems. What can we do as leaders of communities and to help our neighbors, help to give them information? Try to speak with elected official and come to elected official, politician, clergy members to organize um, conversations like these to be able to help our young people, because most of the events that's happening is the young folk, and it's not that they're bad kids. They don't have anything to do, and they don't have the parents in a lot of the they do have parents involved, but a lot of the parents are working so much that they don't have time. When they get home, by the time they're tired. You know what I mean? They're basically tired. So we have to sit down and come up with solution how we could help with affordable housing. It's an ongoing cycle. It's an
I think
ongoing cycle.
I think the reason for crime in a specific community is a very, very long and very extended topic of conversation. It's not going to be resolved in 5 minutes,
No.
or the solutions of how to address it, or it's not going to be resolved in a few minutes, because ultimately it involves families and parents' lifestyles, approaches. I think it involves access to support systems and how the system is handling various serious issues. So I think that it's a very involved topic. I think it requires a lot of nuisance, and I think it has to be pulled away from the street rhetoric that is going on right now, and the conversation shouldn't be try to be consistent with what the street wants us to focus on, but on what the actual issues are. And I think until that is possible for the people who are in those circumstances and live in the vulnerable communities, unless they're able to pull away from the the rhetoric that's part of the public mob, so to speak, I think very little is going to be done unless the government takes a chance to take action and actually be a leader. and do what's right. In terms of whether they're good or bad police officers, I think, again, mostly are good. And there are some bad ones, and they're dealt with in the same way that people are dealt with, except that members of the military are dealt with, and the members of Congress are dealt with, and members of Senate, and all of those, everybody, right? But they have their own system. So to say that nothing is being done is not exactly true. There are attorneys who represent clients who were actually mistreated by police officers. And those police officers are investigated by CCRB and IAB and whatever commission in the police department, right? So it's being done. I think that the rhetoric is destructive. It doesn't allow for public safety and for feeling of for to be protected, to be okay, to be at peace, to walk the streets and be at peace.
It sounds so beautiful, don't it?
It
To walk the
does.
street and be at peace, and to be able to say hi to your neighbor and actually get a response,
I know. And like to just like be at the events, be with the community, just be and be and be. Instead of being stressed out and afraid of everybody in sight.
So we have to come up with solutions.
We do.
Yeah.
We're going to do it, Vivian.
Yes, we will. So Patrick, Nadia, it was so nice to have you guys on, and we're going to next conversation. We're going to come up with ways.
Thank you.
We're going to come up with ways on which we as a collective, with ideas to be able to implement some type of community engagement program or group where we could help each other. I was a member of the precinct council, and we wanted to get a car, like one of those little police cars to go around the community. And I tried to get someone, like maybe 4 people, to like take shifts. I tried that for like 4 months. I reached out to people, they say, Vivia, we need this in the community, we need that. And I said, listen, we're doing a community patrol. We're, with the police, we're organizing a community patrol. And we have the vehicle, we have gas. The only thing we need is for you to come and just drive the car and just talk to the people in the community. I couldn't get 4 people. So of course the car is still sitting there and we can't get people to get involved. So yeah, we have a lot of work to do.
I think it also an important aspect of why certain people would do certain things is because they think it's worth it. If it wouldn't be worth it, they wouldn't be doing it unless they have a mental illness and just overly impulsive or on drugs. So what is it that makes it worth it? I mean, anybody can commit a crime. I can commit a crime. It's just a matter of would it be worth it? So unless it's a gazillion $1 million, no, it would not be worth it because I like my life and I like my freedom, right? Yeah. I like my friends, I like my life.
All right, so like I said, we're going to have to revisit this topic. This is a hot button topic. And although we would love to stay on all night, Anna, and have this discussion, we have to say goodbye and we have to visit this topic another time. And with that being said, hopefully we could come up with solutions and ways that we could work together with the police officers to strengthen our community. And with that being said, have a great night. And thank you guys all for taking out time out of your busy schedule to have this conversation. And we look forward to having more of these conversations to bring the community together. Thank you so much and have a good night.
Good night, Vivian. Thank you.
Same to you.